Good evening. This is Maestro Critello with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today, we have a 1v1 on Calderis Refinery, and our first player is none other than RedRupee, Dawn of War 2 caster extraordinaire, playing as the Techmarine. This is a Space Marine ranged hero who has a gun for every occasion. He can also repair, build relay beacons, and turrets. His opponent is KHORNE, playing as the Chaos Lord. Big tanky melee hero in Terminator armor with a big demon sword and combi bolter to start out. He can upgrade to some lightning claws or a blood maul or a better combi flamer. Alright then, so look at who we got here, RedRupee. Now, just in case some of you didn't notice the comments that I recently made on my recent video, I actually met RedRupee just the past weekend or so. I went up to San Jose, California. He's originally from the East Coast, but he flew into California where he was doing a networking event for the gaming festival and convention that he helps put on. It's called MagFest. It is a music and gaming convention. Kind of like maybe Coachella for nerds, although I don't know if anything that reference might fall short as well. But I actually met him, we hung out a bit, got some ice cream, played some video games, played some card games, and had a good time. Nice guy, tall guy too, was a little surprised. And just in case you missed it, we even had a few pictures which are on my Twitter. So check out my Twitter if you want to take a look at me and RedRupee eating ice cream. Wow, excuse me. Anyway, back to this game. Feeling a little sick, but that's okay. We have the Techmarine versus the Space Marines. Of course, I mean, Space Marines versus Chaos. Wow, did I just say the Techmarine versus the Space Marines? Anyway, the Space Marines versus Chaos, obviously a pretty classic matchup. The Chaos Lord, probably one of the most common as well as successful and proven heroes throughout the life of Dawn of War 2 Retribution. Of course, this does date back to retail when Chaos was generally considered the best race for most of retail. And of course in Elite Mod, Chaos isn't quite as overpowering as they used to be. But I still think the Chaos Lord is pretty much like a steady, reliable, and proven and effective hero. The Techmarine, meanwhile, I feel like he hasn't quite had the prominence of the Chaos Lord in the history of Dawn of War 2 one-on-one play, or, well, just Dawn of War 2 play in general. However, I feel like the Techmarine is a very strong hero. And I would say he's currently very strong, and if not currently, then quite possibly always. Certainly for a while now, and certainly in Elite Mod, in my opinion. Now, one of the big things that Techmarine has going for him is the fact that he is a ranged hero, combined with the unusual composition of Space Marines starting out with 2 starting ranged units. Both Scouts and Tacs are ranged units. He is himself a ranged unit, so generally the first 4 units on the field for a Techmarine player, including himself, are ranged units. And that just results in a lot of combined range DPS coming out of a Techmarine player, more so than most other races. And this has a lot of implications. First of all, it means the Techmarine is very, very strong in melee to start out. Almost even just on the range DPS coming out of all of his starting squads. A lot of melee units will just get focused down, take a lot of damage. So far, we've already seen a lot of Heretic models get bled, as well as the Chaos Lord take a lot of damage. It also means that he usually actually ends up... First of all, he's good against melee. And that's first considering the range DPS, and then also considering a lot of the anti-melee options that Space Marines as well as the Techmarine have. And then, secondly, he actually usually outshoots most other early ranged compositions. So he both tends to be really strong against melee as well as outshoot most other early range compositions. If not purely on range DPS, then because of the combined DPS and durability of the Techmarine himself and the Tactical Marines, especially the Techmarine himself, doing 35 DPS to start out, which is the highest of any starting ranged unit, or any starting ranged hero, rather. and the fact that he does not bleed at all unless he gets incapacitated entirely. And that's really, really big. So, in fact, there's even been I've definitely at some point said myself that the Techmarine invalidates melee early on, and that's a bit of an exaggeration. And that's the kind of hyperbole that I personally try to avoid when making any comments that might have any that might reflect on the balance of the game. But he's certainly very, very strong against melee early on, and he definitely has a lot of options that can really shut down melee, to say it in a more measured way. And so, I mean, given that the Techmarine is so strong against melee and outshoots most other early compositions, that really raises the question of, like, well then what do you actually do against the Techmarine? If you can't melee and he's going to outshoot you, what do you do? Well, I guess you knock him out. That wasn't quite the answer I was looking for, but that's just what happened in the engagement, and so far I've been talking all about the theory of the matchup rather than talking about what's happening in the game. And the answer that I personally came to, actually as a Chaos player, so it's actually good that KHORNE is playing Chaos, is that you need either, for Chaos specifically, my personal answer is you need either a squad of Noise Marines, a Havoc, or both. And in this case, KHORNE does have both, so that's good for him. And it's basically, if you can't melee the Techmarine, you can't shoot him, or if you lose during those things, you need to add those elements of control and status effects that are just part of Dawn of War and are very, very useful. Both of them can shut down the ranged DPS that the Techmarine is putting out, as well as possibly open the door for your melee units to actually do something. These scouts, I feel like, in a tricky position. They could potentially get, if anything, I think KHORNE should be a little bit more aggressive with the heretics. He's probably worried about a potential grenade toss, but the consequence is that he's just bleeding a bunch of heretic models without actually doing much. And I feel like he potentially had the opportunity to force this squad of scouts off, even possibly threaten the wipe on this squad of scouts, but I think he was just being cautious because he didn't want to get his heretics grenaded by the scouts. But we're going to see a grenade on retreat, so good time to use a grenade. It does take one model out, very, very nice. And the Noise Marines right here are bashing the generator, so generator bashes on both sides. I think there has been some talk about Noise Marines lately. And I think the talk about Noise Marines has actually been a concern that they may be a little on the too good side. And I think part of that is their effectiveness at bashing generators, as well as being a pretty durable and actually useful unit. They still have kind of like a very specific niche and use that does, at some point in the game, like kind of get scaled out. But I've actually personally felt for a very long time that Noise Marines are great. And very, very effective. Too strong, maybe, but I personally, it's been a while since I've ever felt that they were actually underpowered. I've generally been pretty happy with Noise Marines. Compositionally, usually a Havoc does make more sense, as well as being cheaper. So that usually explains why the Havoc is the more common purchase than the Noise Marines anyway. Now, KHORNE actually getting to Tier 2 rather late, and RedRupee's already got a vehicle on the field. So this is one of those critical windows. This is actually this is the main critical window that exists in Dawn of War 2. Basically, the rush to Tier 2, getting a vehicle out when your opponent is not even in Tier 2. So managing a rush, TAC should possibly get inside the Razorback or just get reinforcements. And he should be able to use that to push forward and secure another generator bash, while KHORNE actually can't do anything about this. Or at least, he can't really stop the generator bash, or at the very least, he can't stop the vehicle. But unfortunately now, RedRupee dropping his micro, and that is big. He does need the scouts to, or the attacks rather, to start flaming down the generators. He also has the Razorback shooting the generators, which is also important. Just in case there is some kind of counterattack to this, KHORNE could attack the attacks, force them either into the Razorback or to retreat, while the Razorback, still uncountered, should be able to continue bashing the generators. Not going to do it as quickly as the attacks, but again, still uncontested. And KHORNE is also in the situation he's in. His only really practical anti-vehicle option at the moment, or really his only anti-vehicle option, is the Mark of Tzeentch las cannon. Well, it's his Havoc, and he could choose the las cannon, or the autocannon. Either way, this is not the ideal situation for him. He's giving up his suppression. But he does have a rather strong answer to the Razorback, and we do see RedRupee upgrading to the reinforced armor plating. There have been these noise beams being really, really annoying. There have been debates in the past about the merits of the reinforced armor plating. It is a little expensive at 100 requisition and 30 power, mainly the power. But I do feel like you're getting, for what it is, I actually do feel the price is good. Of course, if your micro is good enough, you may be able to save on that power, use it on something else, something that might actually add another dimension to your play, because right now, adding armor to your Razorback doesn't actually change the way you play, it doesn't give you more options. It just increases the durability of one unit and gives you a little more room for error. But I personally think that extra room for error is really, really big. Wow, Bloodletters teleport in, and we see Bloodletters teleported in. They got absolutely owned. Meanwhile, the Techmarine is horribly out of position. He is pretty much guaranteed to go down. Yeah, I see what RedRupee was doing there. His only chance was Bionics, so I think he was trying to upgrade to that in the hopes that he might be able to save the Techmarine in that engagement, but it just wasn't happening. It just wasn't upgrading soon enough, and he was just way overwhelmed. His Techmarine was just way out of position. I actually remember a long time ago, RedRupee did say regarding the extra armor on the Razorback, he pretty much just goes for it. He doesn't even think about it anymore, he just buys it. And I mean, if you think about it, it is a 50% increase in armor, in health points, and that's pretty big. I mean, 600 hit points, that's actually pretty close to a Predator at 700. So that is actually a rather significant increase in durability. If we think about that, that gives you just a little more room for error. You can afford to get hit by one more las cannon shot, and that's actually really, really big. That can really be the difference between keeping your Razorback alive or losing it. RedRupee, now, although he had the tech lead, I don't think, well, he at one point had the tech lead, but I'm not sure that he really does anymore. KHORNE is now well into Tier 3. KHORNE actually has the better resources in the bank. While RedRupee is struggling for requisition, he's lost his Techmarine twice. I think he's also lost quite a few models on his squads. And I've played against RedRupee on several occasions, with him, against him. Once a very long time ago, and some other times not quite as long ago. I think the last time I played him was probably maybe about 6 months ago or so, and, well, to be honest, I actually kind of beat him. But I've personally felt that he's a pretty smart player. He usually knows what to do with his Techmarine. He mains the hero exclusively. Almost. So he has a pretty good knowledge of the hero. And I feel like his Techmarine, when I played him, his Techmarine was usually like tying things up at the right time, using his Techmarine to tie things up just so that they wouldn't be shooting. But I do think he's a little bit rusty, probably hasn't been playing so much. Certainly when I met him over the past weekend, or the weekend before that, with the kind of stuff he's involved in, I can really see how busy he is. But I do think he's a pretty smart player, but at this point probably a little rusty. And KHORNE now looking really, really strong. RedRupee going to Tier 3, but he's lost his Devastators, lost it to a squad of Bloodletters that teleported in. And that, RedRupee did something a little risky, which was he kept his Devastators out only with 2 models. And good players sometimes do this, but it is risky. They do it because the squad does not really get much of a performance increase from having the extra models, and you can save on the upkeep, save on spending those resources to reinforce, especially the power. Grenade goes in, gonna take out, oh, just slightly late, but still managing to get 4 heretic models. Would have been crazy to see how juicy that grenade would have been if it actually hit right dead center. I'm guessing we probably would have seen most, if not all, of the models except for the Aspiring Champion. And to be honest, even seeing the Aspiring Champion go down is possible as well. I have actually lost full health heretic squads with an aspiring champion to single grenades. It's incredibly painful, and it does require a very exact placement, but it's possible. And when it happens, it sucks for the person who just lost their squad of heretics. So RedRupee he's lost some units, but he's getting back the map, and he does already have the VP lead, so it's really on KHORNE to make something happen. KHORNE looks like he's going to stay in Tier 2 for a bit. Since his resource income, he still has the potential to go in Tier 3, but I'm not sure if and when we'll see it. He may not need to, especially part of the problem, Rupee went to Tier 3, but at the moment he doesn't really have the resources to actually get something in Tier 3. He will probably eventually. I think a really good play that Rupee could do is find an engagement where KHORNE has committed most, if not all, of his units, hit him with an orbital, and regardless of how much that orbital actually destroys, he should be able to force KHORNE off the field. That would open the door for Rupee to get at least a double cap, if not a triple cap, and with the kind of VP lead that RedRupee already has, that would really put a lot of pressure on KHORNE. I actually feel like now, if he can just move forward and get sight, it would be a very good time for that orbital. Hit the Heretics and the Havocs, hit the Chaos Space Marines. Bloodletters might be a little hard to catch if they move around or teleport out of there. I feel like Orbital now would be like a good choice. Doesn't look like he's going to do it quite yet. Bloodletter's actually teleporting, going for the Razorback, trying to use their power melee damage to do damage to the Razorback. But the Razorback just kites, and a Scout Shotgun Blast did also knock the Bloodletters back. Rupee, however, ultimately not winning that engagement and lost quite a few models, so he's going to lose a few models. He does have enough resources to get a Predator out on the field, and that is a potential option, but he just lost his Techmarine again. And, I mean, there are different ways he could go about this. He can, now that he has a Razorback, he's also going to get a Predator out on the field, and with KHORNE's current anti-vehicle options, the combination of both a Razorback and a Predator would actually be very, very devastating against KHORNE. KHORNE he's going to Tier 2, or he's going to Tier 3 rather, but at the moment he's not really going to have resources for that much more anti-vehicle. He could get a squad of Plague Marines. Plague Marines aren't terribly strong. Uh-oh, but here goes the Razorback. Wandered into a firing arc, so he loses the Razorback. That was rather sad, and that's part of the risk of running the Razorback around by itself. He walked into or drove into a las cannon firing arc, and there was just no way he was getting out of that without the support of any other unit. So, if anything, I actually feel like maybe a bit of a missed opportunity to not use that orbital when he did. Because there was a time when pretty much all of KHORNE's units were right here in the middle. He could have used the orbital, either kill off a bunch of models, possibly squads, or at least force off the retreat. And the unfortunate result is that Rupee has lost quite a bit in the process. He lost his Razorback, lost the Techmarine, he's given up the VPs a bit. He's getting the field back, but not quite as strongly as he had if he had used that orbital earlier. And I really want him to not just sit on that orbital, especially, and now I feel like that was another like window of opportunity that has passed by Rupee. And not to be overly critical here, but it's hard to see all of this when you're actually when you're in the middle of playing the game. It's so easy to see all of this when you're not. But I mean, part of the issue now is KHORNE is now in Tier 3 himself. He can use his own nuke. Generally well, I mean, obviously, these two races have very, very different nukes. Generally, right now, I would say at the moment, I would say the utility of the orbital should help a little bit more and be a little bit better for this game. Wow. Oh, it does not kill a model on that Noise Marine squad. But the orbital bombardment, hard to use, does have a lot of potential, and if KHORNE can get Rupee to retreat through an Imperial Abyss, he could actually theoretically end the game with an Abyss if he can kill multiple squads, which is, it's actually very, very hard to do though. With The Imperial Abyss, like, for being a nuke, it's very much like a precision nuke. You have to be very, very precise, because there's really like 99% of the damage from the Imperial Abyss is right in the center, and like that outside part of it is actually, it could almost literally be like 1% of the damage of the nuke, because it does so much damage in the center and so little damage outside of the center.
Offer them no easy
We have the Techmarine plasma gun. Techmarine is choosing to engage the Havocs, which does, well, it does do a lot of damage to them, but he's not able to force them off before the Bloodletters tie up the Techmarine. So that leaves the Havocs out on the field. And I think his intention there was to clear the way for the Predator. If he can force off the Havocs, then the Predator pretty much has free reign to do whatever it wants. And this is, again, another potential opportunity, this time right here, to use an orbital bombardment. Everything's really nicely grouped up. He could go for the Chaos Space Marines, now that the Heretics are worshipping, the Havoc as well, and that would also clear the way for his, just for the Predator. And I mean, once the Heretics are worshipping and once the Havocs are set up, it's incredibly difficult for them to, dodge an orbital bombardment. I mean, the Chaos Space Marines probably can. Instead, we're going to see a Venerable drop right on top of the Havocs. Alright. I see it. And this in many ways, is arguably better than what I kept saying he should do. He takes the Havoc out of play, and that gives both his Predator as well as the Venerable completely free reign. The only thing right now that can really significantly damage either the Predator or the Venerable Dreadnought are the Chaos Terminators. And the Chaos Terminators, although they do heavy melee damage, they definitely get countered by both of these units. They definitely get countered by the Venerable, they definitely get countered by the Predator. Now, I think RedRupee should be able to win this engagement. If anything, I think it's time for the Venerable to tie up the Chaos Terminators before they get an autocannon or before they take out the Techmarine. And I think that was kind of big, because taking out the Techmarine means that although RedRupee won that engagement, he cannot cap anything. And not only can he not cap anything, but KHORNE, despite losing that engagement, has managed to keep his Chaos Lord out on the field at full health. And now he's actually going to threaten a triple cap, or at the very least the 2-0, and that should do quite a bit to even out the VPs in his favor. So it's not looking like quite a shutout, even though there was a VP lead. And I mean, look at how much time it's just going to take to get the Chaos Lord off the point. He might be able to finish this cap. He probably will. Scouts move forward so they could do more damage. And KHORNE's going to get the Chaos Lord out of there without losing it at all. And now KHORNE's also coming back out on the field. And now RedRupee actually has so many resources that he can still do an orbital bombardment even after dropping a Predator. So I'm still going to say I need to see him drop this orbital. He's in Tier 3, there's nothing stopping him, he's got stuff bunched up, stuff upgrading, he might have sight on all of it. Maybe he's going for sight right now with the Venerable. Please do it! I'm like rooting so hard for him to do this. It's right there, right there. We've got a squad of worshipping heretics, noise marines that are going to set up, like all of this stuff. Instead he was just going for a raw flank, but he's moving in with his vehicles from 2 different angles. Alright, RedRupee's still winning this engagement, even though not doing what I wanted him to do. And he does it. So we had some nice maneuvering with coming from 2 different angles with 2 different vehicles so that the Havoc could not possibly engage both. We do have an autocannon Terminator squad, which is, in my opinion, a great all-around choice. Good against everything. Gives you some much-needed anti-vehicle option. The only thing I would say about the autocannon Terminator squad is that although it gives you an anti-vehicle option, it's not quite the most powerful one. So I'm not too scared for RedRupee at the moment, especially if he's got some Blessing of the Omnicide. He's got enough red that he could, I'm pretty sure, I forget the exact red cost for Blessing of the Omnicide. Actually, at this point, I think if he did Blessing of the Omnicide, he would not have enough red for his nuke. And again, this is another time when I want to see RedRupee use that nuke. Because he's at a critical stage of the game. He can use a nuke right now to pretty much force KHORNE off the field and just deny KHORNE from having a chance of getting back on the VPs and keeping this as a game, like staying in the game. Like, I don't actually feel that with this nuke ready, I don't actually feel that there's a reason for KHORNE to still be in this game. Rupees in tier 3. Usually when I make the mistake, usually when I tell people to do a nuke and they never do it, it's usually because they don't make it to, they haven't actually made it to tier 3. And instead, oh man, the Predator goes down. RedRupee, well, almost enough resources for another one, but he's conceding the double cap again. Rupee, crazy guy that he is, might even be saving up for another Venerable Dreadnought. And although that could work, he could have already won the game. Like, I hate to say it, but he really could have already won the game here. But I have a feeling he's saving up for another Venerable. But he's running out of the requisition because he's reinforcing his tax. So I think now he's waiting. I think he's waiting on the resources for another Venerable. That's just what I imagine he's got up his sleeve. A second Venerable. He's now triple repairing his original... I don't even know if you can get another Venerable, actually. So, I don't know, maybe Terminators? Yeah, I don't think you can get another Venerable. I mean, I just thought that because he's saving up his resources, saving his red. I've been screaming orbital bombardment so many times. I've just wanted to see it. Alright, he's getting another Predator. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But the orbital, and now he's in a situation where the orbital would not be as good of an idea because because KHORNE has his army split. Alright, we do have an extremely powerful range force right here, but we do have the Techmarine with the plasma gun. That Techmarine plasma gun is ludicrously powerful. There was a long time ago when I did the calculations. I don't remember if these have changed, but at least there was once a time when the Techmarine with the plasma gun and having overcharge active would have done more damage than a fully upgraded squad of Siege Chaos Space Marines. That may have actually been changed, though. I know the overcharge... There we go, finally! This could be too little too late, though. And Blessing of the Omnissiah is active. I mean, he finally did it, and it's helping, but here is the Imperial Abyss, and it does wipe out the scouts. And I hate to say it, but that looks like it's going to be the game against Rupee. It's super close. It's super close. His only chance, yes, scouts need to come out immediately. All right, very, very smart. Recognizing that even with less health, the scouts need to be out of there immediately. It's the only chance he has. Because the scouts need to capture this point. The Techmarine, he needs to capture the middle, but I don't think he's going to do it. He's going to go down, yep. And RedRupee is now not capping, maybe a micro failure, maybe just realizing that it is over. And, man, I mean, I hate to say it, but that did hurt a little bit, seeing that was RedRupee's game to lose, and he did lose it. And I still swear that orbital earlier, on many different occasions, could have either put him in a stronger position to win or even sealed the deal for him. But, well, hope you enjoyed the cast. Check out my pictures with Rupee on Twitter. Have a good night.